let me tell you why you're watching this video. We just finished a really hectic weekend called Photo World Asia. And during that, there were so many conversations happening over dinner, over breakfast, over coffee, and even in between the talks that we realized that, hey, we should sit down and record this. So, to be perfectly honest, a lot of the things you're gonna hear in this conversation have been talked about, but maybe not in as much detail as we're gonna do here today. So that's why for the first time ever here in Outspace Studio, we have someone that you don't see yet. But before that, for the first time this week
Nice
on
talking about
Outspace, here at Outspace Studio, for the first time this week, we have Mr. Jiggy Alejandrino.
See, I
of
told
course.
you he was talking about me.
And more importantly, perhaps
All right, okay. Give me that.
perhaps the biggest guest I will ever have in this studio. Of
Wait,
course.
not literally.
No, because I've
No,
not
not
literally.
literally.
Not literally.
Not
I've been
Okay.
trying to diet.
Yeah,
'cause
okay,
that's- I don't know if
I'm the biggest guest we have here today.
can't lose weight here in this country.
But yeah, the biggest guest, the guy who has pretty much shaped how a lot of landscape photographers shoot here in the Philippines and all over the world. Of course, please welcome Mr. Eli Lucardi.
Awesome. So I think I look at this camera.
Yes.
Hey, everybody. This will seem really casual, and yeah, I mean, we might get a little bit technical. So if you're interested, that's cool. If you need something to fall asleep to, this might work too.
Perfect. Okay, so we're here because of two things. Number one is because I told Eli that I was gonna make him a good cup of coffee, and that cup did not make it to the start of this recording.
It's that
so
good, guys.
yeah,
It's already gone.
I'm happy you're saying that. But also, it's because we feel like we need to talk about the elephant in the room, right? It's something that we should be able to talk about very openly in such a way that every photographer of every different skill level is going to understand, so that they don't miss out on something fun and something really helpful for what they do. And of course, that's AI.
It's definitely, excuse me, yeah, it's a huge buzzword, right? Because it means so many things.
Yeah.
And I think when drones came out, I thought of Skynet, the AI,
Yeah.
like the robots are going to take over, you know? But it's also not exactly what's going on. So AI is synonymous with automation. Automation is the fear that it's going to replace a human interaction.
Yeah.
So throughout history, that's always happened, right? Like everything gets automated or replaced. That doesn't have anything
Factories
to do
and
with
all those,
AI.
yeah.
The problem in imaging, especially photographers, is every single one you ever meet has their own opinion about how much is too much.
Yeah.
How it is pushing colors, what's editing. We had HDR, and now like suddenly AI is going to just generate everything. So this is a scary thing when it's framed that way.
That's true.
Which one? Artistry and imaging?
No, that's funny, guys. Like, yeah, we as photographers, especially traditional photographers, they want to embrace it, but they want to distance themselves from it because it's in mainstream associated with that, like scary. We're gonna add a unicorn to everything, you know.
You know what? To be honest, a lot of resistance that I feel is coming from ego or pride, not
be.
letting go of control.
That's right.
Because they think that the moment AI is there, they lose control of their images. And of course, as photographers, we're very proud of the things that we try to create. Unfortunately, what they don't see is that this is another tool for us to be able to get our vision into a reality.
Yeah.
Easier. We've done it before, we can do it, except that it might take us 5 hours to do one thing. With AI, we can do it
Precisely.
in a minute.
Precisely.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. And it's funny you say that too, because if photography is more than 180 years old, I'm pretty sure it's going to survive
Of course,
this. Because you
yes.
just think about
Yeah.
at all the
Yes.
other changes, film versus digital, autofocus, all these things
Yeah.
that mean you're cheating. It's no longer this. What happened? NFTs didn't destroy photography. Like in a few years, we're going to look back and say, oh,
I should have got on
We're
that
good.
one.
the aliens are coming down and
sold some NFTs.
invading us from space. Like we didn't see that coming. That's going to destroy photography. It's just that how it's talked about is usually distracting from the fact that you've been using it for a long time.
That's true. That's true. That's actually something I say a lot whenever I'm allowed to, it's that AI is not a new thing. It's just that some brands, some software companies, just very intelligently held back on calling it AI.
Yes, it's so positive and negative. 2 or 3 years ago, we wanted to take AI off everything, but now we put it on because people are searching it because it's an odd thing. It stigmatizes, right? It stigmatizes people's opinions about AI. That is controversial no matter what it is, and it's an umbrella for a lot of things. So.
Precisely. It's in my head, it's like a blown up version of how people have been averse to using anything automatic, like shooting in automatic mode and program or everything like that.
It's
the same
pineapple
thing.
pizza, man.
Yeah.
It's pineapple pizza. Like we can't agree on pizza toppings,
That's
and like
true.
you're either like you can't eat pineapple pizza or I love it, and
Yeah.
they'll kick me out of Italy for that. AI is pineapple pizza. Like we
Yeah.
can't just be okay. We have to complain about or pick a different topic.
But I think what we should all universally agree on is the fact that we can't put a cap on someone else's art. As long as there's nothing unethical in what we're doing, right?
Exactly. So the whole ethical thing that irons itself out, right? Like legal minds will fix this. We have the Writers Guild was a good step forward on how you can have percentage of, or really starting to understand that AI content, AI art, it requires a collaboration between a human and a computer, right?
Yeah.
That collaboration exists, and it's actually a little bit more complicated than what they make it sound.
Yeah.
Because the more you use it, the more you realize it's sometimes a lot more work to use it to try to get it to do what you're trying to achieve than it is to do it yourself. So
Precisely.
we'll have this moment where we come back and be like, man, it's going to take too long to do it in GPT. I'm just going to write it myself. And
That's
I think this is where it gets kind of exciting because you'll see everybody argue, oh, you can't copyright it or this or whatever. And while they're focusing on that, people are solved. That always gets solved.
Yeah.
Our job is to create images, right?
Yeah.
And if you see something that you like and it starts to work for you, then you'll use it. But if you're afraid of something replacing you, this is such
It's not a problem of the software. It's a problem of you.
Yeah.
Precisely.
It is.
Precisely.
And it's hard because that should be more reason for you to use it.
Of course.
Because of evolution.
Well, personally, just to jump the gun, I've embraced it. In my head, the thing that I've been asking myself, where has this been all my life? Imagine all the things that you can do now that you didn't want to do before because it took too much time.
These are things that should never have been a problem before.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Exactly.
It's like getting unplugged from the Matrix. And then
Yeah.
you start to see it for what it is. I was doing that for 15 years now? Why didn't anybody do? Oh.
That's true. I remember spending 2 hours, 3 hours tracing every building out of a cityscape photo so I can
Holy
select
cow.
the sky. And then, the reason why I've been saying AI has been there because even before the word or the term AI has been there, we've been using sky replacement on Photoshop and Luminar and everything like that. So it just got a whole lot smarter.
Yeah. Well, what stops you from using something that doesn't work? I try the magic wand first.
Yeah.
I probably know it's not going to work.
Yeah.
But I hope every single time
That it does.
Yeah.
Is that you get
Yeah.
lucky.
Exactly.
Right? That
Or
you
you
get
try
lucky.
the
Oh,
mi-
wow, it masked out the hair properly.
yeah.
Oh,
It'll save
wow.
me 80% of my time.
Or try the magic wand, then see if you can refine the selection or something like that.
That's it.
But don't you think the
Refinement.
magic wand is an early version of actual AI?
Well, yeah,
Because it was thinking for itself.
luminance pass,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
it's like luminance and chrominance. I actually know the science behind how it's done. And then Nick Software did U-Points. Remember
Yeah.
U-Points
Yes,
was based
yes.
on that. DxO acquired it. So
Yeah.
this evolved into, and now nobody complains about the auto masking in Adobe Lightroom being
Yeah.
able to do. I mean, that's why couldn't we do this before?
Exactly.
Is
Could've.
masking what
You
makes
can-
you a photographer? I used to do it for a living. Cut things out for color correction.
I remember when I was doing some editings before, I was asking myself, why can't the computer do this? Why can't the computer do this? Why can't it isolate what I want removed? Or why can't it do this? And now it's here.
Well, if it makes
It's
you feel
here.
better, when Photoshop was created, I started using it in '99 in version 5. Since Photoshop's been created, people say, well, you can just do anything in Photoshop. it's not until now where that's actually true.
Yeah.
What is that? 30-something years.
Yeah.
It is a self-fulfilling prophecy.
Exactly. No, well, actually, if give it to them, you could actually do everything in Photoshop during that time. It's just going to take you forever.
You have to figure it
Yeah.
out.
Yeah.
And I think that's what scares people. You know, I've spent time figuring this out. You know, when I learned we didn't have YouTube, we had each other,
Yeah.
we figured things out. And it was identifying a problem. And then it's like, okay, how am I going to select this? Here's all the things. Somebody's like, don't do it that way. Don't use the click, click, click magic wand thing. You know,
Yeah, you
like,
got to use the thing that does this and
or
that.
somebody's
Yeah.
like, use the pen. I only use Bezier. You know, like whatever. But you know, you had to figure it out. But to figure it out, you weren't just figuring it out to figure it out.
Yeah.
Because you were trying to solve something you identified as a
That's
problem.
what I'm saying. You were just trying to solve problems and making life easier for you. And that is why there is a bit of frustration on why people are not embracing AI.
Yeah.
Right
Well,
now, it's
their
there.
loss.
It's there to make
Well,
it.
they're already using it.
Yeah.
Well,
they just
hopefully-
didn't know.
They don't
That's
know.
true.
Yeah,
That's
they
true.
don't
Because
know.
the problems that it tends to solve are the ones that shouldn't have been problems. The technology
Yeah.
outruns a problem really fast.
Yeah.
You know, like the analogy with NASA is really fun. You know, NASA, they couldn't write in space because pens need gravity for the inkwell, so they outsourced to make the space pen, the compressed cartridge and everything, and while the Russians just used a pencil. So sometimes, and you actually can't use pencils in space anymore because there are other problems it creates, but sometimes we look so much at the technology and what we can solve, we overlook that it's not actually a problem. By the time it's solved, we go a different way.
Yeah.
And this is something you have to remind yourself as an artist too, because you're not, so I don't think traditionally we thought so much about the output. Like I'm thinking about the attention it's getting on social media before I'm shooting it. We would kind of create, right? So AI scares people because now I don't have to be creative. They don't understand is the more creative you are, this is another tool to get that across. And the other common thing is like, oh, well, now there's just going to be 1 million photos and they're all going to look the same. How many bad photos are in the internet right now? How many bad photos were on Flickr 10 years ago? It's just going to, if anything, it'll increase the pool of similar and will make what we do more valuable because you're going to have a sea of, you know.
Same thing.
Yeah, so you could actually make the same argument that it's going to help photography because it's going to normalize so much because people won't be investing the time.
Now that you brought that topic up of helping photography, there was a trend for how many years now? What is the trend with photography? Presets, filters, false colors. So in a way, that solved the problem that a lot of people had.
Yeah.
They wanted to do that because they were overexposed, they were underexposed, and just filter everything just to solve problems of the technical skill of photography. And here I am, I'm a firm believer of AI, but a lot of people are probably saying that too. That will AI really benefit photography, or will it make photographers even, what's the term for it? It will make photographers even more lazy. Thinking that AI can just do everything
Well,
for
it's
them.
like the easy button you can get. That's what everybody thinks every technological
Yeah.
advance in imaging. Oh,
Yeah.
now it's just an easy button.
Yeah.
It's an easy button. Okay, that's fine.
But that's the thing. I personally have been against presets just because a lot of the people who don't understand what those things do will think that, okay, this preset, I buy this and it's going to work for every single image I do, right? And that's the problem because it technically gives them an excuse not to learn editing
or not to learn
more
photography in
extensively.
general, not to
Yeah,
learn
but
light,
the
not to
reality
learn-
is the reason why we don't like that is because it doesn't really come as the ultimate solution. It's something that you have to refine, something
Yes.
you have to double check every single time. But I think the difference when it comes to AI is that there's a whole lot more intelligence into it. That it's going to be able to identify certain things in the photo and, you know,
It has to be adaptive. So my whole career, every company said, can you make presets? And I'm like, I can't make presets because every image requires something different because the auto button doesn't work for
Of course,
regulating
yes.
everything. So I started to try to work with companies who were developing this kind of technology to say, could we say 25% of this tool since it's balancing and then start to do this so we can build a toolkit for people to be able to get the image ready for a preset. Because a preset's not a preset, should be a post set.
Yeah.
Right? So a preset in Adobe Lightroom or anything else, or that lovely way that skin tone looks in Capture One is a LUT. It's a LUT put on the beginning or the end. Your film simulation is a LUT.
Yeah.
So say you identify, hey, I want to shoot Provia or Velvia or Classic Chrome. You've picked the colors in your head.
Jiggy's
now you've
probably
applied
like, what is that?
them.
Yeah.
Okay,
That's-
I'm sorry.
I'm like, what is that? I'm like, what are you talking
Okay,
about?
these are film simulations, right? Like, so you change the color stuff.
Oh, we don't need
you've
that because our
identified.
colors are right, correct?
Okay, Fujifilm, ignore them. Velvia's nice.
We're all friends.
Bleach bypass, everybody knows that. So you've identified, hey, I want this color or color space, whatever you think it is, and you pick it in Adobe Lightroom, right? Then what do? You change it.
Yeah.
What the Like, seriously, like, I want these colors, and now I have to change exposure like 2 stops and this and that. You know what happens when you move 1%, 2% on any slider? It's changing the color. Congratulations, you've destroyed your intention.
Precisely.
That is given that the person shooting has intention.
Well, so here's the funny
thing,
part.
right?
Why? Okay, presets. You hit it right on the head. You cannot have a preset to make it look good. You can have a preset to style something. But consistency and the balance, the thought of a preset is you set this and you're done. But what actually happens is you set the preset and then you have to change all the sliders to make it look right. So you've...
Well, initially they sold presets to be different from everyone else.
Yes.
And then everyone started buying the presets.
Yes.
And
Or worse, pirating the
pirating the
presets.
presets. Then everybody's images look the same. Everybody's skin tone turned brown. Everybody's skin tone turned yellow. And it is cool. But I have nothing against trends nowadays. It's a form of art. Photography, we can't judge. No. It's just that our tastes are different from other people.
And it's also, globally, Europeans think Americans oversaturate.
Yeah,
I mean,
exactly.
it's all different.
It's all different. So we can't judge the output of every artist.
Yeah.
But it's more about having control of your actual output because you hit it when you said it. The problem is if you're thinking of not the output rather than you're going to say, oh, I'm going to fix this, I'm going to fix this, I'm going to fix this. Yes, you have a vision in mind, but your vision should actually start from you taking that photograph to make that vision into a reality.
Actually,
the presets, the colors, the gradings, they're all part of your overall vision of what you want to create.
That's true.
It's not a solution or it's not a way to recover something that wasn't good at the first place.
So intentions are like you create this to simplify it, but you actually give more complication. And so in RAW, has there ever been a time when you're shooting a landscape, when you start changing the exposure and you're like, thank you so much for blowing out the sky. So then what do? You've destroyed the highlights. So where do you go? You go pull the highlights back. When you're like, oh, now everything's kind of like, okay, shadows and like maybe that. You change every single slider and then everything turns gray. Yeah. And then you're trying to put color back in. This doesn't, to me, I was broken out of the Matrix 5 years ago and I was like, why, if 25 years ago, I had a $10 disposable camera and somebody else took care of developing all my photos for me. And now I have a $6,000 16-bit medium format digital camera and I have to do every single one by one myself. I think that the idea of development had to be separated from editing. And now we have is balancing highlights and shadows editing, or is that just something that if we could enable that in camera, would we enable it? Yes, because we have to get it to normal before we can then shift it to our style, shift it to the color swatches that were provided. It used to be Pantones to make sure you get you get highlights, midtone, shadows,
Of course.
And then that's our intention. But what we are is a slider mentality, better or worse. It's like an eye test. Better, worse, better, worse. But what we're not aware of is what's happening behind the scenes. So we think this is all raw, it's non-destructive, but each slider is breaking the previous one.
I want to get into a topic, but I know we're going to really go
Everybody's asleep
Yeah.
now,
He's gonna miss
sorry.
his flight back.
Yeah, you're going to miss your slide. Because you know what I want to talk about? I actually want to talk about RAW and JPEG, shooting in RAW and JPEG, giving all your RAW files, getting every shot correct, almost correct in camera. Because what we're talking about in terms of some highlights here, some shadows here, that is already a given because we're shooting in RAW.
Yes.
Technically, RAW would just remove everything. What people are used to seeing are the JPEG files that are already processed AI in camera.
Yeah.
Right? It's what the camera is programmed to do, and it's how it's going to process the images. But it's giving you the RAW file, which is technically flat.
Right.
So you do have to make some minor adjustments in order for you to get the image to how you want it to be.
10 years from now, you won't because the sensor will have built-in detection
Exactly.
and a pixel-by-pixel analysis.
But here's the thing. Again, the problem with that is that with what you're saying, it's an afterthought. Editing became the whole point of taking a photograph. Instead of taking a photograph, knowing that I've controlled my highlights, I've controlled my shadows. Landscape photographers, you've got GNDs, you've got filters to control all your highlights, bring out the shadows, try to get one good shot. And that's it, right? Especially with me, as a wedding photographer, that's 5,000 images that I take for every wedding. If I have to edit each and every one of those images, then I won't have a life.
You think that architectural photographers really want to edit everything one by one by one by one by one? Yeah, it's a mentality, and I like how you said that the editing becomes the point because I've made so many tutorials trying to simplify complex things, and now I'm helping build AI that, in large part, takes those problems away.
Yeah.
But I think that it's interesting if we kind of look back. This tends to happen a lot in photography because historically it was very expensive to become a photographer. You spend $40,000-$60,000 on medium format so you can get the job. So when there's no buy-in and it equalizes everything, of course people who made an investment change. iPhone came out and point and shoots went away. It's like, oh, well, now you don't need a wedding photographer. How'd that work out? I'm pretty sure people figured out, like, when you ask me to shoot your wedding on the phone, it's not going to be very good. You know, we should probably still hire
I really
somebody.
like what you said about editing being the point of shooting. Because I'm going to admit, I've experienced somehow feeling a bit of guilt sometimes when I shot, I don't know, maybe a product photo for a review or something like that, and I synced it to my phone and then put it on the article right away, and I'm like, why do I feel bad that I didn't edit this?
There's just like this like guilt.
Yeah, there's like a whole...
It could be so much
whole,
better.
you know?
No, it's more like but I didn't do it. Like, it's like, hey, remember when the monkey took the photo and we can't figure out the copyright? I'm like, I'm making Photographing the World with f-stoppers in like 14, sorry. And like, I'm standing there just taking the same photo so I can blend time. And Lee, like on the first day, he goes, so you're just taking the same photo a bunch of times? Yeah, in aperture priority mode. And you're not going to move it? No. Then why are you standing there? I was like, because I need to take the photo. He's like, just put it in interval mode. And I was like, but then I'm not the one pressing the... And then I'm thinking, like, I've been standing next to the camera for years. So I started putting it in interval mode and playing Angry Birds. Like, I could be doing so much more with my life, you know? But it didn't occur to me, and then I felt guilt, and I'm like, that's dumb.
It's good to know how much Lee has changed your life.
He usually calls me, he makes me, we are good friends, but we definitely argue and yell at each other.
But to your point, Nicco, I get that feeling because I know that, let's say, for example, here's the thing. If my JPEG files and my the difference between my JPEG files and my RAW files should only be about 10%, give or take. I just want to be able to control and tweak a little thing here and there, but my JPEG file should actually be good already.
Yeah,
correct?
Agreed.
The reason why you actually feel bad by submitting a photograph straight out of the camera is because you are a photographer. Because there is a tendency for us photographers to look at every single detail. Oh, you know what? This highlight could have been better. The shadows here could have been better. But 90% of the people who are going to view your image will be like, wow, this is beautiful.
Yes.
And who are your clients?
That's
are your clients
true.
photographers or people who are going to say this is beautiful?
That's true.
Well, and think about what you're shooting compared to what, if we shoot just a regular sunset, right? There are two ways to look at it. You can either see the sky and everything in the foreground's black, or you can see the foreground and the sky's white, right? That's obviously, there's something wrong there.
That's from a camera perspective.
Yes.
But from your eyes perspective, everything's properly exposed.
Yeah,
Yes.
exactly. But in the when you can control more elements like that,
Of
then
course.
yeah, the JPEG delivery can be great. And a lot of times you're not making adjustments that are going to break it, and the intended output's never going to break the pixels anyway.
Exactly.
But there's a misconception that if you can fix it, you can do everything in AI, then just screw it up in the camera. It's not true. Because the closer you get in camera, the less work the software has to do.
That's exactly why I said that the JPEG files and the RAW files should be very close to each other. Then afterwards, I could teach AI, or we could train AI to just do this,
Yeah.
and everything's done.
So you
Plus,
don't
you
have to
get
do
all the
everything
details.
over and over.
Yeah, then plus all the details of your raw files, your 16-bit files, will be there. So
16-bit
and then you have AI to do everything. You know how easy it was. I use it. I don't use Lightroom. I use Bridge primarily for just one reason: batch processing.
I use Bridge too.
Right, for batch processing.
You know,
So
it's been there the whole time.
create action sets, do your batch process, have a cup of coffee, let the computer do everything for you.
Yes, thank you.
But you can't do that if you have to tweak every single thing to correct all your mistakes. So getting it right is still the forefront or the main basis of
Precise.
AI.
If the auto button worked, would you use it? And we all do it. We click auto and we're like, that's close. Like it's a different starting
Yeah.
point, right? And
Except that you've got a smarter auto button now
yeah,
with
so this is
AI.
so as you evolve as a photographer, especially in editing, right? The first impulse is to turn the slider all the way up. And
Yep.
as you get going, you realize that you're not only are you subtle, but you know where not to edit. So the reason Radiant Photo is able to do this, like I can give a photo like that that's nearly
Have we
perfect.
even mentioned Radiant Photo?
That doesn't
did we?
matter.
We haven't.
We
See,
haven't,
no, no, no.
which is perfect because I was like, we're talking about AI, but we're not talking about one of the best software out
guys,
there.
this- yeah, I mean, I founded the company, you know, with really close friends of mine, and this is
How
why
many
you don't
minutes
put a
have we been
photographer in
talking?
charge of marketing a product, right? Because, like, oh yeah, no.
We haven't even talked about
This
the
is what-
product.
27
How come I
minutes in.
haven't? How come I haven't heard of it here? It's
27
like, well,
minutes
I'm very bad at that part of my job. So, because I'm still thinking like we think, you know, and I think what's cool about that is, okay, if you set a slider to 100 and it's almost done, you're gonna barely see a difference. So I get excited when somebody says it's so subtle. I'm like, good, it knows what not to do,
Yeah.
because it's not just an enhance, and then eventually it breaks. If you don't see it doing anything, that's great. It's not because, I mean, maybe it's you're a good photographer, but certain things like different lights
No, but
cause different issues.
yeah,
There's
but
bounce and stuff. You know?
Raw files, you'll see a difference every time. The moment you process a raw file, you're gonna see the difference because inherently raw files are flat. That's what we were talking about earlier.
Yeah, and it's sad, like with a film simulation, you have to reference the JPEG so that you can correct the raw to
yes,
it
to
and
make
maintain.
it make it look the same. Yeah, but you know what? I'm guilty of that. I used to edit this way. Auto. Oh wow, nice. Bring it back a little. All right.
That's
good.
how- yeah,
It's a good kickstart, right? If
It's a good-
gonna
it's a
save
good
you-
starting point,
Yeah,
yes,
if
yes.
it's gonna
It's really a
save
good
you
starting
10
point.
minutes on every image,
But lately, auto has been too aggressive.
It's-
That's my problem. They've been too aggressive when it comes to highlights and shadows, so that it looks very HDR-ish already.
that's true.
Yeah, it's hard too because when you adjust the light on a face in post, it shouldn't be turning gray. You can't just
Yes.
remove. So you have to put something back. So the color is not like, oh, we're just desaturating. It's
Yes.
like no. It has to inject the rich color, so it has to balance.
Which is
RGB.
the beauty of your software.
Which is a natural thing that the software
Yes.
companies just haven't had to think about. Because when you move everything, you have to, dial that contrast back to 11 because that's the only way it's going to put color back in. So there has to be color restructuring or restoration because the software has destroyed it. Wherein it would have been easier in the beginning to just maintain that structure throughout the editing.
Which is what Radiant
Which is what
Photos
Radiant Photo
is
does.
doing,
Yeah. A funny story about Radiant Photo. So it is a startup. We're 5 partners. It's a year and a half we've been out. Mobile's out now, but we released the first one, and I've never released a product before. It's so scary, right? Like this, and I'm the one who has to hit the button. And we started getting feedback. It's not working. Oh no, like you just launch, it's not working. What do you mean? It's like I load all my photos into it, and it's not doing anything. Well, it's doing stuff for us, and you know what? We shipped it, and we don't ship it, but we set it to no before and after slider. It showed the after. So it was loading images so fast, and everybody
thought-
saw
they
the
thought-
after image. They had to click on it. So first, day 2, we're like, okay, let's change it so that they can see the split. Then it's like,
Yeah.
oh wow, it's amazing. But it was so, and then that was kind of cool because we're like, it happened so fast, they didn't even notice it was edited.
Fantastic.
But that was like a fun, I didn't
Yeah.
even think that was going to happen.
I
but-
remember having that experience when you first had me try it out, and I was like, "Oh, okay, so we're done."
It's humbling. I'd send it to people to test, and they'd be like, "Oh, thanks for making me feel horrible about myself." So I started running my finished photos through it, and I'm like, "Oh yeah, that's better."
And thank you very much, Nicco, for saving me so much time this past year
Why?
and sharing the software with me. Thank you very much. That's me being sarcastic. Because Nicco had it for a year.
Let's blame him.
Yeah, imagine how many weddings I've shot, how many skin tones I needed to correct.
How much gray hair you could have.
Hence. And you've had it for a year. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
But it's also the climate to talk about it, because
Yeah.
we're at a point now where our software itself, Radiant Photo, has matured enough to where we have everything's coming on the roadmap, the stability, all these things are a really good place. And the new stuff that we implemented is amazing too. But also the industry's grown to accept it, because it's first like, I can't use it. Where's the develop panel? Where's the develop module? And so from a marketing positioning strategy was very difficult. It was like, oh, well, it does everything for me. Yeah. Oh, but can I do it as this? Yeah, you could do that too. And so we had to see what the market data and how people were talking about it. They're talking about it as a finishing tool. This makes sense because maybe you're throwing a raw in there and that's finishing it. Or
For the purposes of
Yeah.
our viewers, could you explain in the simplest way what is Radiant Photo?
what if your photos started balanced? What if all the color was like it was shot, all the exposure and tone and sharp, all of that was just started normalized? Not enhanced, even though from a flat raw to normalized, is a pretty big difference. And then you got to go from there. That was my foundation. And it came at a time when I was doing client work with landscape, which would be, whatever the contract says, 200 images plus 20 hero shots. But they want to see like all the things I shoot for 2 weeks, 1,000 images. I spend days pre-editing images to send to a client so they can choose which edits they want. And the song is like, we don't have the song. I'm like, I wish I could use this. And that was the first use case where I was like, landscape photographers aren't going to accept that they don't have to do all this hard work because the editing becomes like your prowess, right? But I was thinking about that, like, man, imagine a wedding photographer, like, they don't want to spend all night editing these photos because that's not the point. The people have bought the style. They like your style, and you're just trying to make everything look like that. And it takes so much work to do something that sometimes is simple.
That's why presets became a thing for wedding photography, because it's just so easy and apply the presets.
Well,
Yes,
that
but
makes
wait,
sense.
Radiant
No,
Photo.
I am not,
Yeah.
guys. I am not telling you to get presets because I'm telling you not to.
But use the ones in Radiant
No,
Photo.
But use
Okay.
it. Okay.
Let's circle back. I wanna
let's circle. Yeah,
back
because
we're gonna split this into two segments. And before we get to the second segment, I want to circle back to the presets thing, because I also know a lot of amazing wedding photographers who use presets, but I know that what they do, the style of their shooting, is also guided by what they know they're gonna use at the
okay.
end.
No, actually, I'll rephrase that.
Yeah.
There is a difference between bought filter sets and a preset. Presets are technically supposed to be for your images.
Yes.
So if I take a series of photos and I'm a consistent photographer, I can create a preset to how I want my edits to look like, more or less. So that preset is mine.
Yeah.
But if you buy a preset from somebody else, then that becomes different. Because you are actually taking
Their
the
style.
vision of
Yeah.
somebody else instead of creating your own, even if you tweak it.
Yeah.
Because I would suggest, if you really want to do presets, let's say in Lightroom, which I've never really used, but you could, if you know that you can control your photos in a certain way, no matter what the circumstance is, you can always control your photos. You can control your white balance, you can control your exposure, you can control where the light is coming from. Because more often than not, recovery of images is because of the misuse of light. You have overblown highlights, you lose contrast, you lose color, then you start recovering everything,
Well,
right?
the thing is, you shouldn't be using presets to make up for mistakes.
Yes, but the presets are actually there to help the good wedding photographers.
Yeah.
The presets are there to just streamline, prior to AI,
Yeah.
it's there
Yes.
to streamline the process.
Yeah.
In other words, I am going to shoot it this way. This is how it's going to be edited, and I can
Exactly.
automate everything.
Exactly.
Well, it's meant
Right?
to simplify something that should be, should have
Simple.
been simplified.
Yeah.
But the problem is then it's like, what if you're shooting outside, front lit, backlit, side lit, you're in the church, you're all these
Yeah,
things.
but then you don't.
That
That's-
preset doesn't work
Yeah,
anymore.
Exactly, but that's where your skill as a photographer should come in. In other words, you should be able to control all those things even before you actually take the shot.
Yeah.
You do your best to.
It's
Yes,
one
you do.
single intention.
You have, let's say, let's say you have like 5% or 10% that are backlit, which I can honestly tell you none of my photos are ever backlit except for when the bride comes in the church. That's
Okay.
it. Because let's say you've got a big window here. I would never put my bride right in front of that big window because that's a backlit shot.
Oh, that was my mistake.
Right? So remember how you could just put the bride on the side of the window and everything just changes.
Yeah.
The
But this
colors
is
just change.
also if you really say that the color, everything's there, and then you're applying a visual style that could be 20% bleach bypass with a little softness, right?
Maybe, yes.
So you can control all these things, but what Radiant Photo will allow you to do is it doesn't matter if it's front lit, back. I'm not saying do it because you're a bad photographer. I'm saying like the environments don't matter anymore because we can regulate before.
No, of course, yes.
So one
understood.
preset can actually
Yes.
be your style.
Because that is not technically a preset. What Radiant Photo, I believe, I haven't really tried the software too much yet. Because Nicco, remember, we're gonna do a part 2 of this
Yeah.
one,
Guys, no,
which is the first time I'm actually gonna try the software.
You looked at it.
Yeah, I looked at it.
It is installed on your computer.
Yeah, I looked at it.
This is really the extent of it.
I looked at it. I understand what it's supposed to do. I just want to see how well it does it. However, it is not about one thing that I understand from what the software does. It just basically tries to equalize everything.
Well, yes, but so this is the company that we license from. This is 20 years of color research, right? And so it's based on the fidelity of the color. So what you shoot stays what it is.
Yes.
And so that is the foundation. So it's not just that it's balancing everything. It's accurately portraying the exact color that was captured no matter how it was shot. And a lot of the times, that's so shocking. But if you look at the before, even though it was underexposed, you're like, oh, and the red same, it stayed the same. And then that's like to us so foreign that it feels edited. So it maintains the integrity of the color, and it tries to protect you from blowing out pixels. You know, it's trying to do these things, but really what it is it's just the same color science we've always wanted to use. It's now achievable to make your edits without destroying any of the color, because color is usually what people, it's emotion.
It is.
You know, and so this is where color accuracy, no matter what you're doing with editing, to a point, is important, because at that point you can change it. You can make it whatever you want, but you shouldn't be destroying the colors you intended to capture with your editing. You should be preserving them.
And what Radiant Photo does, it gives you a very consistent palette to work with.
It does, and it also now with skin tones as well. It's the first software
excited.
that does any skin tone.
I'm actually so excited to tweak it. I've been jittery since the first time I opened it. I'm like,
This is new. This is new, guys.
And
This
no,
has only
it's
been out for a
to
couple
be honest,
months.
I'm so excited because if it works the way it should, which I know it will save me so many hours of work.
And to be honest, like
right?
the other thing, it's trained for every skin type and tone, and to
Yeah. I
mitigate
love
everything.
that.
And
Yeah,
so,
exactly.
it's like it should have happened a long time ago, right?
Yeah,
Like
yeah.
makeup companies are now making makeup for dark skin. It's like
Exactly.
So everything was always tuned for for white people basically.
Yeah.
Like your preset was tuned on that. So I'm like so happy because now it works for everybody. It should have been there before, but I
Exactly.
feel like most of the world deserves this. You know, you've had to deal with like
Well, I'm glad it's
magenta
here.
in the shadows.
Yeah.
You had it, like,
Yeah.
that sucks. Like you have
even
to
just
learn
magenta.
just how to mitigate all of these things that don't even need to be a problem.
Well, if you want to take it a bit further, the industry has evolved so much that you've got a good balance of expensive equipment and affordable equipment, correct? But a lot of, especially like with continuous lights right now that we're using, there's a bunch of continuous lights out there. And everybody thinks that just because you have a light, it's the same thing. Except that light has a different color to it, a different color tone. Sometimes there's an underlying magenta to it or a green tone to it. Then it affects your skin tone. The moment you put it on your computer, this one was shot with this light, this one was shot with this light, this one was shot with this light. Then you've got a magenta skin tone here for the same person, magenta tone here, a greenish tone here, and doing...
and you know what people
And-
try to do is just change the white balance. So Radiant Photo can detect
Yes.
what is a problem from lighting, cast light, bounce light,
Exactly.
overcut. So all of these things are mitigated in the right order. This is the other thing, right? Like, so you have a magenta cast. Okay, you could do that at the end. But if you have this light is producing this, that's not going to change with white balance, and you'll compound the problem by editing after. So you have to neutralize all of these things, but also can't be done globally. So this does it pixel by pixel. And you, all of this stuff is detectable. You know it. You can see it.
Yeah.
So it's trained now to be able to fix it before it's a problem.
Imagine.
I am excited to see what Radiant Photo will do to, you know, those images in weddings where for some reason the lights and sound supplier decided to use a purple
you
light
know what?
or the magenta light.
Yeah.
Because that's a nightmare for a lot of photographers.
Barney Shrek. I have it. Barney Shrek, the Avatar look. So you've got purple, green, and blue.
I tested on it. I tested on it
Really?
because
It works?
Well, yeah, that was the whole thing. Like, if it can accurately reproduce color, can it do it to a ridiculous extent? And it can. It can. And I used images just like that, where it's like the
That's
key
hilarious.
blue, red.
You know what? Whenever I
excited
do
to
lighting
see that.
workshops, they always ask me, what am I supposed to do when the light's this way? I go, well, there are two options for you. One, talk to lights and sounds, ask them to turn it off, please. Or number two, use a flash. You have no choice. You've got to overpower those lights. Now there's a third option. Get Radiant Photo.
Yeah, I mean, so it's like the worse the photo is, the better it does, because it has more to fix, right? And it's just kind of funny
Exactly.
problem to have.
So you should stop talking to more experienced photographers
We
about
have
Radiant
them.
Photo.
So, yeah, and the comparison is, if this is so frustrating, like if you invest all this money and time and you go to, like, say, Iceland on a photo tour and you're shooting something, and it's like, well, you can't even see what you shot until you edit and balance the photo later, and you have to import it. And so what do? You just take a photo with your iPhone, because that's what you're looking at, because the iPhone can do this, but my $6,000 camera can't. So it's like we just accept that this is fine, and this is fine. It's not. So with the mobile app, we can play around with that a little bit more, because I don't want to do any editing on my iPhone. And every software company is like, here's the raw develop, here's all these tools. I'm like, it's too complicated. I just want to hit the auto button. And I do that in Apple, and I'm like, that's pretty good.
Yeah.
But now in Radiant Photo, it's like, I don't want to edit on my phone. I just want everything to look good.
Yeah.
So that's the mentality that we don't even know we have. But for some reason, it doesn't apply to this, but it will once the technology catches up. So we're already ahead of that. And now, I mean, it's taken a long time to have people understand that it's not editing all of your photos for you. I mean, I guess you can define it that way. But you're getting excited of like, oh, we don't have to, it's going to be able to detect all those things that
you know
have
how
frustrated
you mentioned that there's an app for it. There's an app for your mobile phone. Because for me to post anything online, even though it was just taken with my phone or whatever, I'll transfer it to my phone. It'll still have to go through Lightroom or some form of editing software, right?
So
That's us as
Again,
what
I
you'll do,
apologize for
you'll
sitting on
pre-roll.
this
Can you just
and not
imagine
telling
that?
No, but you'll add to the video a little bit, like just plug it into the phone and show.
Yeah.
Because
So all you have to do is press auto. Thank you very much.
just open it. No,
that's-
it'll automatic. You don't even have to press
That's
anything.
precisely
Oh yeah.
what I thought when we were first trying out the mobile app. I was like, this is the extent of what we should be doing on the phone, and nothing more, nothing too complicated.
It was hard to have solved the hardest thing first, when it made more sense when you can show somebody on mobile, because we all understand it. But to solve the 16-bit, no vignetting, everything perfect, all that first, it was a little bit too hard to describe to people applied to that kind of output, where on the iPhone now we do it all the time. We've now learned that we just want it to look good. And people say, I like the iPhone because what it looks like. You know, I love using the portrait mode, you know, but you're not, you just want it to be right. And this is, so having the technology now in mobile is an easier intro conversation with a photographer.
Sorry, I'm so out of it already because my mind's somewhere else. You know what where my mind is? In the Philippines, we do what we call an on-the-day photo slideshow. So I've got an editor with me the whole day, choosing all the pictures, basically culling everything. And we show everything at the end of the day as a photo slideshow of whatever it is that happened in the wedding. Then after that, we go back to the studio and we re-edit everything, because it's just a quick editing, global adjustments, right? So my mind is already in the fact that with this software, everything that we've done on the day, tomorrow I can just say, okay, sharpen it and upload.
Well,
You
it's
don't
actually for live stuff too. So a lot of
Yeah,
my
it's
friends
like-
who are content creators for companies, this is great because they just batch it through.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And
exactly.
they can put it online, and maybe they've saved 20 minutes here and there, but that's like half their day is just getting
No,
these ready.
we're not even saving 20 minutes here. We're talking about 4 or 5 days
Yeah, this
on our
is-
part. Yeah.
yes.
So if you can get everything right in camera, everything right on the spot with a software that's so fast and it's not internet based.
No, it's not on
That's
the
the
cloud.
best thing about
we
it.
don't
It's
need
not internet-based.
No
It's not cloud-
subscription,
yeah.
no login, no cloud, no anything. You buy it, you can keep it, you can own
Yeah.
it, we update it. It's a foreign concept, this
Yeah.
not on the cloud.
Then afterwards, output it, give it to the clients at night.
Okay.
That's
Yeah.
it. We're done.
Yeah, and it's nice because you can. It doesn't learn you. We can't do that because we can't take all the data. We don't take any. I don't want your data. Like I really, adaptive AI is not a thing because we don't want to take that data. But what it does allow you to do is quickly establish like I like it to be a little bit more or less. So I created profiles called Radiant Pro, knowing that somebody's going to say, oh, I don't like the edited look. Okay, I created a subtle set. So you can say, well, switch it to subtle, and then. Oh, that's great.
Yeah.
And now I have a new one I just added called Finish, which takes it even further. If everything is so close in camera, you can trust this one even more because it's not gonna. It's not that it's not right all the time. It's the more you can, the lessen its burden, the more it can do. Right. So if Finish will always be able to take a photo, whether it's somewhat edited or fully edited, and still give it whether it's 1% or 10% of that final touch. So after you start using it, you can save. This is the other thing. Okay, you can save your own version of it. So the other thing is
That's
you
what I
can
was going to ask. Does it learn?
It's customizable. Doesn't learn. We keep training it, but you could say, you know what? I like this better. You can save your own smart presets.
Yes.
So not only it's
Yes.
not on the cloud, you own it, but you can save over our settings.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Like for example, your standard settings are a little bit too dull in terms of the colors or the brightness is too low. You could tweak it and say,
Yep.
this is how I want my pictures
Yep.
to be.
Actually, I don't mean to cut you off, but we're nearing like 15 minutes already. But I believe this is something that we will be showing
Yes.
on the next segment. But before we get
Yeah.
to that, maybe talk to the camera right beside me and then invite them. And I think we're going to put a QR code or a link or whatever. And yeah.
Yeah, I'm happy I don't have to edit all of this together. But what I'd like to do, what we want to do is we want everybody to be able to use it. So if you follow this link or QR code or whatever they do here in editing, they'll make sure that you can arrive on a page. It'll make sure you can arrive at a page where you can download the desktop version. So it works as standalone Mac Windows, works as a plugin for Photoshop, Lightroom, and other applications, and also the mobile app. And you can have 3 months of it free. 3 months mobile app, 3 months of the desktop software, and just to try it.
That's a quarter of a year.
Well, it's so
How much does software cost, by the way?
it usually around $120 or $130 for the desktop
That's
software.
That's
very much
it's actually
affordable.
very affordable.
We try it.
Yeah.
Yes, it does what it says it does, and it's the
Yeah.
mobile app is actually really cheap too. But the idea, if you're a photographer and you have like a 5-day trial, usually when you download something, you kind of play with it, and then maybe you get a job that comes in, and then it's expired already. So, when people install Radiant Photo, nearly 40% of the people who install the trial buy it. The gold standard in the industry is about 5%.
Fantastic.
So
Congratulations.
this is, it's
Yeah,
cool. We're still very
congratulations.
small. We don't have a lot of users, but it makes us feel like you just got to try it. Because once you see it, you'll
Yeah.
believe it. I was on social media today. It was like, that's impossible. And I'm like, you're seeing it, you know.
That's a big win
I'm
because
so excited,
the
actually.
concept has
I'm
been proven.
I'm so excited because I'm one photographer. I'm a very, very lazy photographer when it comes to post-processing. If I could find ways and means to make my life easier after the fact, I enjoy shooting. I hate editing.
Yeah.
If this one will help me go through that,
Yeah.
fantastic.
Okay, so
All right.
that
All right,
is
guys.
why we are going to cut this off. And if you are interested to learn further about this app, about this software, then you can head on over to Jiggy's channel because we're going to continue this discussion, but we're going to have computers out. And we're actually going to see, and Jiggy is going to
I'm
see
actually excited.
how this is actually going to change his workflow. And yes.
Are we
And-
ready?
You're going to be a
Thank you for
new
watching,
man.
guys.
Thank you very much, Nicco, for hosting
Yeah.
this. And Glenn Lopez.
Of course.
Fantastic. If you guys have any requirements, especially if you're based in the Philippines, for live feeds and things like this, like a recorded podcast or anything, really. Whatever requirements.
Thank you for promoting our business.
Yeah.
Because I relate. We're the worst people to promote our own business.
No, I'm actually so
At least we
impressed.
have the logo.
This is the first time that I've done this in Altspace, and I've done a few things here with you guys in
Yeah.
Altspace. Again, if you guys are based in the Philippines or more or less Manila, if you're looking for a studio to rent, Altspace is a place to go. You have all these lights already here, of course, all NAN light. And you've got Glenn, who's always here too, in case that you guys need live streaming, correct?
Production
A full
live stream
production
or a full production podcast. Yeah.
And then you've got Nicco here to teach you how to use everything that's here in the studio.
And coffee. Don't forget. He'll
And
make
to make coffee for you, of course. All right.
All right,
So thank you very much,
everyone.
Nicco and Alaya. Fantastic. I'm so
It's
excited.
an honor to have you here.
I'm so happy this is like
Yeah.
the first time you guys have done this too.
Yeah.
Because it's the first time I've talked
Because
about it. in a
whenever
forum
we'd
like
be
this.
here, we are going to be like, okay, what are we going to eat? Okay, let's have coffee.
No,